Hello, how's it going there? I want to welcome you to my web. I want to welcome you to my video. My name is Andrew. This is one man's life with autism. Yeah, I know I'm ugly, but I'm 58. I guess I don't age well. This is the way that God made me. I would like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Uh, I live on my own in an apartment unit with fit for one. It's a low income apartment, so let's see. And I've been a bachelor all my life. I've had friendships with women in my past, but I never led a marriage. I was engaged at one time, but it didn't go well. I guess you can say I dodged a bullet there. Um, I drive my own car, and it's a 2015 Toyota RAV4. I was diagnosed with dyslexia. It is a learning disability. Uh, it's a learning disability when I read. I get my B's and D's mixed up, and reading out loud can can be slow and humiliating. Also, math for me is below average. So I do so yes, I do use my fingers to count. Autistic people autistic people do that, and that's nothing, and there's nothing wrong with that. It happens. I was not able to go to college because of my autism. I did go to a trade school, and I learned uh, to learn the printing industry. I was limited I was limited in the field, so I was not able to find a job in the printing field. So all my life I took jobs to just get by. Now I have an interest. Now I have an interesting story about my first job. When I was an adolescent, my parents were going through a divorce, and I was going to a Catholic church at that time, and my mother knew a man by the name of Charles Francis Brown. He She knew him from my church, and Charlie. Interesting story about him is that he went to art school with Charles Schultz. And when Charles Schultz was was starting his Peanuts cartoon strip, he asked Charlie Brown if he could use his name for the main character, and Charlie Brown said that it was okay to do that, I suppose, and that's how Charlie Brown became famous. As a young kid, I was one of his rent-a-kids, doing yard work and just basic house cleaning, and um, and that's it. There, oh, you know, oh, he was just a guy that I was friends with, and I didn't really, because I didn't really have any buddies that were my own age, and it was, and he eventually died of cancer back in '83, and that's the end of that story. My experience with being autistic. Well, where do I begin? I started with my I started with my high school years. I remember going to 2 hours a day in special ed. I had two special ed teachers, not in the same year. They were male teachers, and I liked that. I remember practicing on my math and reading. I guess it was usual basic skills. I joined the cross country ski team in the winter, and I did track and field in the summer. That was my activities and sports. I graduated from Wayzata in 1982. I was raised Catholic and never went to Catholic school. And the Catholic schools were not sympathetic toward children with special needs at that time. I say back then in the 70s, uh, there was a great deal of bias toward children with disabilities. I became born again Christian when a friend from school invited me to church, and I came to the altar to pray the sinner's prayer to receive Christ as my Savior. I learned the gospel message before by listening to the Reverend Billy Graham on one of his crusades. Of course, God's word was something difficult for me to understand. I, sh- I sure I'm sure it was with you too.